Yeah! Hey-oh, we're doing movies. We like
talk.
movies. We
Talk.
keep you up to date, sorta, kinda. Maybe not really up to date, but closer than, I don't know, home video, right? Closer than your local Blockbuster.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of people who but then again, I don't watch the YouTube.
You don't watch the YouTubes?
The YouTubes. And,
You don't go down a YouTube rabbit hole now and again?
I'm not on those. No, I don't.
What do you mean you're not? No, people are. We are on YouTube, actually.
I mean, that's true. Yeah.
But I'm sure you've watched videos on YouTube in the fullness of your
I've watched
life.
a pitch meeting or two. You know.
Yeah, I'm sure. So we're doing 3 movies today. Three movies.
Because we're just making up for last week.
That's right. Because we got to talk about. So I think we should. Here's what I think we should do. I think we should talk about Morbius first. I think we should talk about Lost City second, and then we can really stretch out on the last one.
So get the.
Because I think we should start knocking out the ones that we have less. Because we'll go a long time on anything.
Yeah.
But
true.
I feel like we should knock out. That's what I think we should do. How do you feel about this plan?
Yeah, I was either going to advocate the opposite, only to let the conversation breathe and not worry.
No, because after we do everything everywhere all at once, we're gonna want to stop because we're gonna be winded from all our thoughts.
All right, let's do it.
There's nothing much to say, especially. I mean, I think we might have a little disagreement about one of the movies, but the Morbius, there's not much to say about. I mean, I guess you could say a lot about it.
Yeah.
But
well, do you want to introduce? So Morbius first.
Morbius is
glutton for punishment.
Morbius is. I don't know what to say about Morbius. Morbius, it's not a movie.
Keep talking. I'm gonna change your level.
Oh, okay. So it's not a movie. It's a thing that you can see in a theater. So you could be confused, right? It's sort of it's in the uncanny valley of something that appears like a movie. And so it might confuse you.
That's very good. That's very good. I like that comment.
Movie.
Because it is the illusion of a movie. It exists as what you perceive as to be a movie, but what it is nothing. Like it's the most hollow, empty shell of nothing. It's trying to feign the idea of a Marvel movie. It has actors in it, but it does
have actors.
Not very good actors, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, but those, I don't know. Like, I understand Jared Leto might be like a piece of shit human being.
I don't think he's that good of an actor.
I mean, he's won an Oscar, right? I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, he won an Oscar for.
I'm saying, like, this goes way beyond whatever you think about these particular actors, right?
Yeah.
I'm neither here nor there on them. I'm not big fans of any of them, but I don't think that I mean, the problem, whatever this thing is, I don't know what to call it because it's not a movie. Whatever Morbius is, I think blaming the actors is like that's like blaming the caterer on the Titanic.
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
I mean, that's. Yeah, maybe he could have spotted the iceberg coming too, I suppose. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, how much involvement does Leto have? I think he almost acts like a producer on a lot of projects that he comes on.
Yeah, well, to whatever, however much he owns this, he owns whatever it is. That's a very insightful thing I just said. I was shocked by how bad this movie is because, I mean, obviously, we shit on superhero movies because we're fucking snobs. But the truth is, to me, what I expect at this point is a very steep, very centered bell curve, which is to say that I expect them all to be like
average,
between like 2 and 3 star movies,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I expect them to be either slightly good or slightly bad,
and
I'm very surprised when they divert in either direction,
where they're excellent or they're just
terrible. Yeah, I'm surprised by terrible too because. And that's a difference. To me, this was kind of a throwback to the era of, like, when I was younger, there would be, like, there was this terrible Daredevil movie, there was a terrible Elektra movie, there was some terrible Fantastic Four movies where they were almost B films, where you got the sense that the studios were like, well, we've got the property, so we'll try to make something.
We'll put some money to it, but not a lot.
No, they weren't tentpole movies. Yeah. They were kind of like, well, we'll take a flyer on this.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a little bit of that, right? Because as opposed to like the current crop of Marvel movies where to me the worst of what you're going to get is something like Eternals, which is still much better than this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I do not like Eternals.
No,
I mean, we talked at length about how much we didn't like Eternals. Eternals is a movie
Yeah.
Which you can't really say that about this.
Yeah, I mean, because the Eternals, while bloated, while ambitious, while trying to tap into something of a cosmic degree in the question of superhero lore and mythology, doesn't do it well, doesn't do it in an articulate fashion, but is competently mediocre throughout. Like, it has the visual sensibilities that make it average or above average in any kind of way.
It has some moments where you're like, okay, that's good.
Sure.
That's interesting.
And the tone is set. I mean, anything in the kind of MCU, Disney, Marvel production line, that's mainly the problem with those, is that they all feel so monotonously in sync that none of them divert from each other in a personality. But that's to its advantage, because when something like this comes around, where it has no personality,
yes,
it has zero semblance of a reason to exist, it is shocking. It is shocking, and I'm going to admit to you, and I have not admitted this to a lot of people, I'm going to admit it to whoever's watching, I walked out of Morbius.
You walked out.
I walked out.
You walked out. I didn't stay for whatever post-credit scene.
No, I definitely did not.
But I did make it to like the purported ending,
yes,
the first ending.
Well, so I didn't intend to walk out. What ended up happening is I really had to go to the bathroom because I drank water, because I saw 2 movies that day. And I drank water during both, and I really had to go to the bathroom during Morbius. And there was I looked at my watch, I'm like, can I hold this out? Can I just sit through this? And I looked at it, I said, there's only 20 minutes left. And then there was some lull in the action where I'm like, this is pointless. This is a pointless scene. It's just expository. And so I got up, I went to the bathroom, and when I exited, I just drifted out the door. I just was like, I just don't care. I don't care what happens.
I feel like the editor of this movie did the same thing.
Yeah,
they just were in the middle of editing it, and then they were just like, oh, that's it.
I mean, because there's nothing that could have happened in the last 20 minutes that could have saved anything of this movie, because it would have just been the more bloated sense of what they had already shown me. The really, really bad CGI on Matt Smith's face as a vampire. The weird interpretation of vampire lore as it pertains to the universe, and they were very loosey-goosey narratively moving around without care in the world, with centering you in anything.
No, the movie is put together. Do you know the art game Exquisite Corpse?
That sounds familiar, but I haven't played that.
So what you do is, let's say you got 4 people, right? You divide a paper up into 4, you fold it up, you draw something, and then you give it to the next person. You fold the paper such that they can see just the very bottom of what you drew. So they can sort of connect to the lines you made, but they don't know what you drew.
Mm-hmm.
So it leads to a kind of abstract expressionist it's a kind of abstract expressionist art exercise. That's the way this movie is put together. The scenes, there's just no connective tissue. You just go from one thing to another, and there are times when it's so incoherent that it even happens within a scene.
Yep.
One of the most mesmerizing scenes in the sheer incoherence of it that I've seen in a long time was the scene where the 2 police officers are interrogating Morbius.
Yeah.
He starts to morph into the vampire. He looks like a demon, and they just don't respond.
Yeah.
They don't respond at all. It was literally like they had 2 different scenes, one where he reveals and one where he doesn't. Morbius is the one where he reveals. The cops are the one where he doesn't reveal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, to me, that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That was actually, I mean, like a first-year film student wouldn't make that mistake.
No.
Of having a huge moment that the other people just don't, like, it's like they're in an episode of Law and Order. They just say, oh, well.
Oh, we see this all the time.
I'm going to see this over with. So.
Yeah.
I mean, the cops are actually the perfect example of what is just mesmerizingly bad about this movie.
Oh, yeah.
They're completely inert.
Yeah.
I mean, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern look like protagonists next to these guys. They don't, so if you have an extreme...
They are like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
If you have an extreme situation, right, all of a sudden in the world there are vampires. They're vampires.
Yeah.
and you're the cop that is, or the team of cops that is assigned to investigate this seemingly vampiric phenomenon. Well, there's two obvious choices you could make. One is you buy into it. You think, oh shit, there really are vampires.
Yeah.
We live in the Marvel universe. The world's ending every hour and a half. Of course there's fucking vampires.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't there be vampires?
Yeah, of course.
Right? In this fucked up, insane
In this,
world.
Revelations has come, and
That's right. That's right. I mean,
everything. The dead are walking the earth. Vampires are taking our blood.
Dogs and cats living together.
It's utter pandemonium.
Or you doubt it and you think that this is all some sick but non-supernatural phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And since you've got two cops, guess what? You can have one thing, the other thing, and then you give their scenes a little bit of friction. You give their scenes something, but instead they literally just show up in scenes and look around and say, man, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, it is. Well, okay.
Yeah, they're very. It is like, Jerry Orbach in Law and Order.
No,
I mean, it's like he's like, oh, hope they didn't drain it too fast. I don't know, like.
But at least at some points in that show, he's an agent of something.
Yeah.
These guys literally, they have no impact on anything.
Nothing.
They are significant characters. They're probably in the movie as much as any other than there's like the main three characters.
The only reason they're there is to make a commentary. Hey, we haven't seen something like this since San Francisco, which is a Venom reference. Yeah. And so it's just for them to ground their reaction, which you're right, is not... It's not believable.
They had two choices, and they chose. It's like they came to a fork in the road. They decided to just stand there.
Yeah.
They decided, it's like people who have brain damage, right, where they don't feel desires, and so if you give them the choice between like a blue and a red pen, they'll just freeze for an hour.
And this is
It's like you could just choose one or the other, or like I said, you could choose both, right?
Yeah.
Have one go one way, have one go the other way.
Yeah.
Because then their scenes together would not... I mean, it's literally them just saying, oh, yeah. And then the other guy's like, yeah.
You're right.
I mean, I mean, I understand that these are not going to be, like, complex characters, but they're in the movie. Their scenes should have some momentum. Like, that's the thing is, the scenes don't connect. I mean, we haven't even talked about the way the movie opens, which is just insane.
It's a disconnected cold open.
It's just like he's getting the Nobel Prize. No, he's not getting the Nobel Prize.
He denies the Nobel Prize.
He's a kid. He's a genius. His friend is so. I mean,
it puts pedal to the metal on exposition.
Actually, the opening sequence is insane. Where he does no less than 3 times in the movie, he does the Ace Ventura, "Come on to me, my animal friends" with bats.
Yeah.
I mean, so here's what happened. I just take the opening scene. This will tell you everything you know about this movie. They're gonna collect some vampire bats. He shows up with his team of whatever local handlers, right?
Yeah.
Local
in Costa Rica.
In Costa Rica, whatever, somewhere else, right? It doesn't matter where.
It really does.
And so what happens in this scene? His main handler is, like, I gotta get out of here. Give me the money. I want to get out. This is fucked up. It's scary down here. And he says, "Cool.
We shouldn't be here after dark.
Cool. I'll give you the money. Give me that knife." And he just takes the knife and and this is a sickly man. This is a man who is not doing well. He's barely getting around.
Yeah.
And of all the plans he has to like get blood out there so he can draw in all these vampire bats. What does he do? I mean, you think there's a lot of ways he could lay hands on blood. He's at his office. He's got bags of blood.
He's a blood expert.
What does he do? He takes a rusty knife from this dude and slits his hand and just holds it up. It's like, that was your plan? I mean, literally, to make my second Ghostbuster reference, get her, Ray. Your plan was get her.
Yeah.
Like, that was your plan? Just hope somebody has a knife so you can just cut a gash in your hand and let the bats just wash over you.
It is, and by the way, it's orchestrated for only a cheap visual effects moment, because you're right, nothing makes sense about it. They also don't have enough money to explain how he caught the bats in the first place, so that's why they cut away. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, I caught these bats, and now I have them.
I got them in my bat tube.
Yeah, with whatever he has, there's no explanation.
It's literally like someone said, well, we can't do Batman, so let's do a man bat.
Well, I mean, there is a man bat character in the Batman universe, and I'm just saying. it's a better interpretation than what we got here. I mean, but that's DC. This is Marvel.
But like I said, this movie goes beyond bad.
Yes.
I mean, outside of Don't Look Up, which is a Hall of Fame terrible movie that exists in its own tier by itself and will be very hard to challenge, this is definitely the worst movie. It's a race for second.
Yeah,
it's like in hockey where everyone just agrees that Wayne Gretzky is the best.
You know,
Don't Look Up is the worst movie we've watched, but this movie I think moves into second above probably Antlers for me. Antlers was always the example of a movie I really didn't like.
Yeah, it was pretty
bad.
bad.
This is much worse than Antlers.
You know, when it comes to superhero movies, and I was going to ask you this question: why do you this idea that characters within the universes becoming so inert, so unshocked by what's happening around them? Do you think that this is just a mere problem with the overabundance of superhero movies in general? Because we can't necessarily write characters who can react in surprise and astonishment because we are no longer astonished, shocked, surprised by anything that happens in these movies. And so therefore a lot of these characters are supposed to be kind of a guiding force of the audience to react, to comment, to be the middleman or the straight guy in the chaos and weirdness that a lot of these movies are. But we don't have the characters in this movie who are that guide for the audience are the police officers, and they are just uninterested and uninteresting.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the overabundance of this kind of material that because we're just kind of writing in an echo chamber and repeating, copying, we've talked about this with other things, and the infinite copying of
this movie
the formula.
It definitely has copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah, it just becomes
kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you're now scraping the bottom of the barrel of this gene pool of creativity, and it lacks any sort of semblance of ingenuity.
This movie feels like, and I think this is probably what happened, right? This movie feels like they gave up.
Yeah.
Because they clearly cut out a bunch of connective scenes.
Oh, yes.
Because the movie really does kind of barrel forward. Yeah. Like one moment Morbius is cool, calm, and collected doing research. The next moment he's like locked himself in a room with no way to get blood and is like scrawling blood in blood, you know. And also, I mean, I also just want to note, like, for such a genius, Morbius is a fucking idiot. I mean, we all know right away that his friend has taken the drug and killed this nurse in the middle of the movie.
Yes.
And it takes him like 15 minutes of movie time to realize what is so patently obvious as to not even be.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't call it a twist.
It's not.
It's so. I mean, everyone but him knows what has happened. But to go back to your original question, I think that. So in terms of the way these things go, right? Yes, I do think they're at a bit of a cul-de-sac, which is why we see. So, you know, Marvel struck lightning. You know, the Disney Marvel MCU stuff. They got hit by lightning with Robert Downey Jr., right?
Well,
which is the
by
reason
the way,
why you know, we have Robert Downey Jr. to thank or blame for all this because.
Sure. I do have to say, it wasn't even Disney at that point. That was Paramount.
That's
Paramount had a partnership with producing Marvel products, and Iron Man was the first.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I'm not trying to lay it at
but Disney has secured essentially the infinite, procured
gauntlet.
Copying of this formula.
We must run.
But you're right. Disney has they had these series of minor successes. Iron Man being mainly the one. Incredible Hulk not so much. Thor was okay, and then Captain America: First Avenger, and then you have this kind of unified journey that was sort of being built along the way. I mean, it was kind of messy at first, and now that it's in this motion, and Morbius is outside of this realm because this is a Sony product. This is a Spider-Man continuation outside of this realm. But
although it's still all technically in some sort of continuity, right? Like,
yes.
I think they've sort of agreed to to at least not contradict it.
It's in a multiverse,
well, whatever. I mean, who gives a fuck? It's also stupid.
It is.
So there's a reason why, just to sort of cut to the end of the kind of long-winded point I was thinking about making, there's a reason why a lot of these things are moving to TV, because the movies have hit a cul-de-sac, right? They've hit a cul-de-sac, and so you have to go to another form. You go to another form, which opens up a different kind of storytelling, a different kind of idea. It's the same thing that happened with a lot of stuff, though. I mean, all prestige TV is just people... I mean, the truth is it's harder to make good movies.
It's true.
Movies are harder, which is why they're better. Because when they succeed, they're much more powerful.
Because we're more hyper aware. I mean, there's always a lot of movies being made every year, but we're very hyper aware, and a lot of our media, our social media, our interactions are guided by conversations about movies, and that can be a serious problem because it really saturates the market, and so it really you have to be excellent or unique to break through the monotony of this conversation.
I think there's truth to that, but I just think that, I mean, here's the thing. What do we really think? Let me see if I can articulate this. What is there to do with this genre anymore?
Yeah, that's an important question.
What is there to do with it? I mean, what is, when we talked about the Batman,
I have a proposal.
I can guess what that is, but basically they'd taken the Batman to the point where the Batman had become Rorschach. The Batman had become the sort of caricature of the Batman.
Yeah.
So what else can you do? I mean, once you've taken him to the point where he has become the thing that he was sort of caricatured to be at his most extreme point, where else do you go from there?
So I do have a proposal.
Okay,
propose away. Tell me if you like this idea, and maybe anybody who's listening to us, which is not many of you, but
smash the like, smash the subscribe, sound off in the comments.
Before our time, there was a genre that was very articulated via the course of cinema, and that is the gangster movie. The gangster movie found a heightened kind of mythology, a kind of Robin Hood kind of character, someone larger than life, evoked because they were kind of a self-made person against the system. They blamed the banks, and they took on a huge identity. And so I only bring this up today, and I think the only place, or at least one of the only places you could go creatively, and I haven't necessarily seen this done. You've seen maybe superheroes or coming back into the limelight, but this idea of retirement is actually what I think would be an interesting study on what a superhero does. Because what do you do if you're done, if you're just simply done? And today I had a conversation about a wonderful French crime movie called Touche Pas au Grisby, which means hold the loot, or take your hands off the loot, or something like that. It's a terrible interpretation of title. The UK title is Honor Among Thieves, which I really like. And in that movie, it is kind of a early meta deconstruction, like early 50s, about a gangster who is performative in his life, wears the suits, everyone admonishes him with respect. He has this wonderful aged quality, but he wants nothing more than to not be this person anymore. And I think, obviously we do have some deconstructions. I mean, obviously you've talked about Watchmen, that, Alan Moore kind of did it. Like, what more can there be?
And that was 35 years ago.
It was 35 years ago. And The Boys is essentially doing the same thing today. But what would be,
or Kick-Ass did it.
Kick-Ass, yeah. I mean, yeah, Mark Millar is... Wanted is another kind of interpretation. Not the movie, the comic. The movie's
Preacher.
pretty garbage. Preacher.
You could go on and on.
And so there's a lot of these iterations of subversion, but why don't we really get into the psychology of not wanting to save people anymore, even if you have the ability?
Yes.
Like, I think that would be an interesting diversion.
I agree with you that the only place I can look around and see ground... Well, there's actually a couple places. I think you're right. I think anything that was subversive or deconstructive, but not in this hard R kind of nasty way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't have a problem with those stories. I just think they're also played out at this point.
I do agree. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's superheroes but they fuck and they're kind of bad, right? I mean, that's been done too. So you've got, what do you have? The models you have are sort of the Marvel model, which is kind of a multiplicity of different sort of subgenres, but generally tonally pretty coherent, like somewhat sentimental, trying to be funny, but also trying
Quippy,
to be galactic kind of drama.
Yeah.
You have DC, which kind of doesn't know what it's doing outside of Batman, where Batman is just darker, darker, darker. So I do think that you could try to find a way to go back to like the core of superheroes like Superman, which is a like high romanticism, right? High romanticism.
Yeah.
You know, kind of let's be our best. Let's think about what the best of us is.
Truth, justice, American way.
Yes, yes. So you could try to really go with the unironic high romanticism of classic Superman.
Cool. Yeah.
Hard to do.
Very hard.
And it's hard to do, and that's why it's always hard to make sequels to those movies, because even if you think the first one is okay, once you get past the first one, you have to, basically they just have to have someone get kryptonite and Superman becomes bad, or Superman has to overcome something, right?
Yeah.
So that's an option. What you're talking about is another option, some sort of deconstruction, which is incidentally kind of what Watchmen is.
Yeah.
Watchmen is a much, I mean, this is why it's the greatest comic book. It's a very subtle and multifarious deconstruction.
Yeah,
right?
because even what I'm talking about, Dr. Manhattan is essentially doing through
Yes.
the majority of that comic. He's basically like, I could do anything I want. I could save this world. I could change molecules to its infinitesimal degree, but I'm gonna escape. I'm gonna go to Mars, and I'm just gonna sit there.
Yeah, and so Alan Moore often gets that period of his work, at least, often gets lumped in with Frank Miller, who is very much just the dark, dark, dark guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think Moore is the more subtle and interesting
He's more sophisticated.
storyteller,
Absolutely.
right? So I think there's that. And I also think, gosh, I mean, the one thing I do think we could use of is the return of some really high quality X-Men content, because to me,
Yeah, because that gets into different things.
because what's interesting about the X-Men is that there's a lot of gray there. I mean, the whole driving energy of X-Men is that Magneto has a really good point.
Yes.
Right, and he might
Most
be right.
good villains have very good points.
But his is particularly good.
Yeah.
Especially and you could do even better. Like there's some, but I was thinking about this while I was watching Morbius, because I couldn't pay much attention to the movie because it sucks so bad.
Well, it doesn't even have an inkling of any of this that we're talking about.
The latest sort of thing they've come up with in X-Men is like a great example. I don't even want. It's hard to even explain, which is why I'm not sure it could translate to a movie. But it's a great example of what you can do with comic books, where you have the mixture of a visual and written medium, where you can get into some really complicated and it's very intricate things it's doing with timelines and kind of where mutants are at, and they've sort of put the mutants in a very interesting position where they're existing completely unified in a sort of compromise between the Professor X and Magneto thing, where they're holding themselves apart but still trying to be helpful, and basically saying, like, we'll help the rest of the world with our advanced technology and power, and just leave us alone.
Yeah.
Just let us be.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not really, but they're not really, and it's evocative of some of my favorite books. I don't know if you've ever read the Culture novels by Ian M. Banks.
No, I have not.
But he basically, it's about a post-scarcity intergalactic society that kind of just wants to be held apart, but also some people want to meddle too. So
Interesting.
But to me, to the extent to which you can go to conflicts that are not about good and evil and that are not about the end of everything, right? That to me is where there's daylight.
Absolutely.
Where you've got conflicts, and that's where, to me, superheroes need to draw inspiration from the best science fiction, right? Where you're talking about ambiguous situations, right? And ambiguous futures or scenarios where nobody clearly has the right of it.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement because, and what's weird is that we're talking, in a heightened degree about the genre that, Morbius, because we need this conversation to take it into a different direction, because what Morbius does is just drive it further into a grave.
Yeah, no,
like it is just
it's
a
the
dead.
reductio ad absurdum of Martin Scorsese's "This is audiovisual entertainment."
Yeah,
because literally that's all it is.
it is.
It doesn't even really attempt to have a coherent story.
No, it does. It is patchwork. It's lazy. It has no personality, no drive, no oomph to it.
And it
I mean,
just
it
feels
just is
like it's on
dead.
rails.
Yeah,
like the scenes just follow one after another in this not even predictable. A lot of movies are predictable.
Sure.
But I mean, just none of it has any impact.
None.
I mean, it has a perfunctory pro forma love story that's even less earned than the one in the Batman.
Yeah, I mean, that one's just talk about a nerd. It just does not go anywhere.
But also, it comes from nowhere.
Comes from nowhere.
Nowhere, has no effect.
And there's a lot of ways that they could have put effort into, I mean, even easy screenwriting effort into, because how it opens, we already talked about, is lazy, it's weird, it's disconnected. All you had to do was follow Morbius up to perhaps the day of his getting the Nobel Peace Prize, his interactions with his patriarch, which is Jared Harris, interactions with his, the woman, gosh, what's her name? Adria Arjona plays Martine. Like, just these interesting dynamics of characters so that you understand who they are to each other, what their relationships are. In this movie, they assume it doesn't matter. They know it doesn't matter, and so they just power forward.
Honestly, it feels like they knew they didn't have it, so they're like, let's just release this.
Let's just do it. I mean, that's the thing. They've been pushing this for a while, and you have to wonder if
they didn't have it. I think they knew they didn't have it.
And they were trying to find the ideal day.
Let's just cut together as much special effects kind of shit as we can.
And it's just garish. Like, it's just awful looking. None of the sequences are even remotely interesting visually or exciting.
Yeah,
it's just dull. It's just so dull, and it's because they just don't care. Nobody cared. Nobody cared about this movie. It was simply a act of IP justification of trying desperately. Sony's desperate. They have Spider-Man, but the best version of their Spider-Man is being handled by Disney. We'll see what they do with the Spider-Man back in their hands, because I don't think Tom Holland is going to be in the MCU. I think it's going to be these separate kind of stories, and so they're building this foundation of awful versions of anti-hero interpretations of Spider-Man villains, Morbius and Venom being these two. But now I think they're doing a TV show of Kraven the Hunter, and I mean, this is just getting silly. It's getting ridiculous. And you described it as like DC doesn't know what they're doing, but at least it has like kind of a similar tone with everything. And not all of it is great, not all of it's good. MCU just kind of churning out a production line. But here is the other Marvel product, the Sony Marvel product, that is just sitting with just a deadened soul, and it has no intention. It's just made out of desperation to make something, and it does fall in line with the same kind of the original Fantastic Four, or the Josh Trank Fantastic Four. I actually think the Josh Trank Fantastic Four is worse than this movie, but they are very close. I mean, they are both miserable.
I mean, I've probably blacked that out, but I mean, here's the thing. It's just the disease of more.
Yeah.
Because I like the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
But even then, the third one just feels like, I don't know, it feels a little... I liked the third one, but it feels like we're out of gas. Like, it feels like you kind of shot your big load with that one by bringing all these different things together. I don't know what you do with the fourth one.
More is more. More is more.
Yeah,
and they're going to do it again with Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you just hope enough of these movies fail that they have to change, but they won't. You're right. Okay,
they're not.
I feel like we should.
Even Morbius is not going to fail box office wise, which is rough to think about.
That's rough.
You're right. I don't know if I can talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
It really is such an unpleasant experience. I do have to tell you, because it is so dead inside. This is a corpse of a movie that is trying.
It's like a Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah,
It's
they've
like
brought it
it's
to
sewed
life.
up. It's sewed up together like
Ugh.
some sort of
Like with pieces
demonic
of other movies.
abomination. Yeah,
Yeah, it's an abomination.
It's bad.
It's terrible. Don't see it, please. Don't see it. Yeah.
Lost City.
Lost City. Not as bad.
See, I liked this movie.
I'm not saying it's not.
I like this movie more than you. I really like this movie.
Okay.
I thought that this movie, and I think that Morbius is a real great contrast for this movie because this is a movie.
Well, and this helps. I think it should be noted to everybody. I hated Uncharted, and I like adventure movies. I really do. Even though this movie is very much just romancing the stone. I mean, it's like beat for beat,
but
like
steal
copy
from
for
something
copy.
good, right?
No, but
Steal from
and
something
and
good.
what I will say is, after watching the lack of creativity and the lack of adventurism in Uncharted, here's a movie a month later that actually has a decent sensibility of what makes a good adventure movie.
Yeah.
It has a sense of fun that is part subversion, part meta commentary of the very genre that you're watching. I mean, constantly they're making remarks about an accident that has happened that didn't necessarily unfold the way that they wanted the characters. You have this introduction of a character who's the badass with Brad Pitt, which that's not a giveaway. I mean, we spoil it anyway.
We spoil everything.
But with Brad Pitt, he's in the trailer. So, which as soon as I saw him in the trailer, I'm like, well, that guy gets either dead or shot, and he's no longer part of it.
It's so obvious that you have to take him out to make the
movie work. And so I had a decent time watching this movie. I don't think it was as fun as they thought it was, but I need to be fair here. After watching something as just lacking in creativity such as Uncharted and had no sense of adventure, I was happy enough watching this movie. This was not eye-rolling. This was not a chore. This was breezy. It was light. It was decently fun. Did I want a little more from it? Sure, but I think it did enough.
But I mean, I liked it more than you did. I thought, maybe I'd feel differently about this movie when these kind of rom-coms that were star vehicles were more common, but you don't see movies that very much like this.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, like I said, it's a movie. Like it has a story. It featured. I mean, I'm very high on Channing Tatum. I like him a lot.
I do like him.
And I think, and the one thing that I really like this movie does is it really pushes on the sort of gender role reversal very hard. I mean,
yes,
he is the ingenue. He's
incompetent.
Dewy-eyed, fresh-faced. He's in love.
He's the damsel coming to distress.
Yes, yes. Yeah, he literally, and so I thought it was. I thought Brad Pitt was great in his little bit. His little bit was hilarious.
And because of that, I'm looking forward to that movie that I'm sure you've seen a trailer for, Bullet Train, just because it looks like he's having fun. And I like when Brad Pitt's having fun.
And he's a guy who's had tremendous longevity and is having a real late career surge. I mean, Once Upon a Time in the Hollywood is his movie as much as it's anyone's
Absolutely.
movie. I mean, he is really kind of the glue that makes that movie hang together and go. He's a to me his career is pretty remarkable. I mean, to go from like Pretty Boy,
Thelma and Louise.
I'm not the
back.
first one to make this comparison, but it's shades of Robert Redford, right? I mean, you start as a young, kind of good-looking guy.
He definitely was a kind of a not a filmmaking protege of Robert Redford, but they've had kind of similarities in kind of in the way that utilizing their age to their advantage. Again, we don't have a lot of people who are willing to go, I'm older, this is what I look like, in a kind of stardom quality, because there's a lot of insecurity or expectation in that in the world of movie making. But he looks great, but he also looks weathered. Like he's using it to his advantage.
Yeah.
And I really do enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm just saying a lot of people who start their career as being someone who thought it was just like really good looking.
Yeah.
I mean, when Brad Pitt was early in his career, it was like, oh, this is just a great looking guy.
Yeah.
right? And to go for that, I mean, like, yeah, he's a very attractive man to this day, but he also has real acting chops
And he always has.
and
He always
has done a lot of different roles. I mean, I always think of him in Snatch and roles like that.
Snatch,
I mean,
12 Monkeys.
He's willing to be strange. He's willing to make fun of himself. He's willing to
Burn After Eating.
Yeah, oh God.
Great interpretation.
About the security of your shit. I can watch that scene like a million times. Yeah, him and Malkovich, just so good.
So fantastic.
So he's I love Channing Tatum. Sandra Bullock, another person whose career just kind of keeps on keeping on.
Keeping on. So here's the thing, and this might be just a minor quibble. I actually didn't like that it was a romance between the two. I liked the dynamic between the two characters as somebody who has created a character, and the character, he's like a living embodiment of this character and has had no creative say in it, but everybody associates him. I liked the dynamic already, but it turns romantic to me a little awkwardly.
She sees his giant dick.
Yes,
she's like,
yeah.
I need that. I need a piece of that.
I need that. And then they have
who amongst us hasn't, seen someone naked and be like, well, okay, let's do this.
Let's do this. But there's a difference, right, between lust and romance, and how it ends. It ends with such a, I don't know, a Hollywoodized.
It's a little saccharine. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean, so I almost wanted it to be just a mutual understanding.
Shakespeare in Love, where they send someone away.
No, I just wanted.
Yes, we can never be together.
No, I wanted a mutual understanding between the two and what they have
like
to the
product.
Fuck
buddies. They're just gonna be fuck
not
buddies.
even sure. Why not? I just mean
FWB.
The arc shouldn't be I'm attracted to this person and therefore I then appreciate them. No, I wanted it to be like, oh, there's more to this person than I ever realized because I've never thought of him as anything else. And obviously that's still there. So I'm not saying that the movie doesn't tackle that seriously. I just it kind of cheapens it for me with the romance.
We're not breaking a ton of new ground.
No,
and yes, that is a very pat way for the story to develop. But I do think leaning into him being the ingenue and leading into her being the sort of nerdy alpha is at least a little bit of a variation.
It is.
I mean, there are some legit, like the scene where they kidnap Sandra Bullock and she goes to Danny Radcliffe. He's just got the tables just full of cheese. I did, and then the cheese like all blows at her. Like,
because
I had a good laugh on that one.
I mean, because there is some good visual. I mean, some good visual comedy, right?
And I thought Radcliffe was good too. I thought he played that sort of
a little underwritten
slimy.
in the end. In the end, he's a little underwritten, but I did like how he was introduced and what his character.
I mean, and that's another guy who's kind of gone from a child actor to be like a good, respectable, kind of interesting.
He definitely is trying
himself.
He's definitely trying
in a way that I mean,
some have worked.
It's tough to come off being Harry Potter, right? I mean, that's kind of one of those things where
it's a curse. It's a curse.
Yeah.
Of the child. I don't know, curse of the child. I don't know what it is.
He's,
the one that he doesn't want to do yet.
Voldemort couldn't kill his career, I guess.
No, absolutely not. I do like Daniel Radcliffe. It's interesting because he keeps trying to insert himself into some notable projects. I think it works best when he's like, he did a side character part, if I can recall, called, I think it's called What If, and it's a romantic comedy. I think he's in that. I'm going to look it up for a second, but I like him when he's trying to be in some side things that are interesting and different from what people are associating him with. And when he does something like Horns, which is not very good, but then something like Swiss Army Man, which is quite good, although tapers out near like the last 30 minutes, but it's brave, it's bold, it's showcasing someone who's trying to reinvent the assumption you have of him, and so he's always trying to do that. And I do think Daniel Radcliffe, he was in this movie called What If with Zoe Kazan, which was quite good, and I think he was a very credible rom-com lead for that, and so. Yeah, I think he works in this too. Like he works as a slimy guy.
That sort of in a way, it's kind of mirrors what we were talking about with Brad Pitt. It's like embrace being the supporting actor, embrace being more of a character actor.
Yeah.
Sometimes do these roles that let you step out of kind of that. Because the dude carried a massive franchise of 8 films.
Yeah.
I mean, that's That's
And
a lot.
I mean, God, the
I mean, that's a thing you'll never live
that's hard
down.
because I mean, a lot of child actors, they start and they do a lot of little things. His is different. I mean, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, that is difficult because that was a beloved book. To put them into that, I mean, it transforms. You become this character, and to try and leave it behind to do your own thing based off of what you enjoy is performing and acting. I got to give him credit that
Yeah, I mean,
he's
they
he's
started
pushing
young,
it.
and also, I mean, in terms of the way that character was conceived of and illustrated of, I mean, pitch perfect casting, right? I mean, he
Absolutely,
looked exactly like, you look at him and say, oh, that's Harry
that's
Potter.
Harry Potter.
So yeah, I really like this movie. I mean, to me, this movie is, yeah, it's light,
It is.
and you could certainly quibble with a lot of choices, but I'm just happy that this movie exists. I enjoyed watching it. If someone wanted to watch it again, I'd watch it with them. Like, if they sat down and said, "Hey, I want to see this," I didn't see it, I'd say, "Sure, this is fun. This is light. I'll get some
Well,
laughs."
like I said, it wasn't a chore. So yeah, I could see myself engaging in it in a casual way
I mean,
at some point.
for roles like this, I think Channing Tatum might well be my favorite person out there to do a role like this.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a lot of range. He can take a role.
Yeah,
Like, he can bring off the sort of very sweet, naive, vulnerable thing about
he's
this character.
dopey. He's
Yeah,
very dopey.
in a way that I don't think a lot of people could.
No.
Like,
No.
you couldn't put The Rock in this role,
No.
you know?
No. Well, I mean, he's too big. Like, and Channing Tatum is a well crafted specimen of a man, but you're right. He has the stature that can be utilized as somebody who might work out a lot, but he has no life experience, and so in putting him into a exaggerated situation of survival in the game, like he has this idea in his head, and it works. Like, he works very well, and his dynamic with Sandra Bullock, her almost condescending nature to him,
she's
works
the
very
alpha.
well. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I really like this movie. I mean, this is a solid, like, date movie, recommend movie for me.
Yeah. I didn't think it was. I mean, there were moments where they were trying to be funny that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I again, these are quibbles. You're right, because I think in the overall sense of what you can get out of the movie, and I think it ends on a nice notion. This idea of treasure. What do we have? This idea of treasure, and it turns out the idea we have in our mind, or at least they had the smarmy billionaire child who wants to discover treasure for his own benefit and fame. The discovery is that it was just a gravesite for love, and so I did like that, because usually these adventure movies are about something that is priceless and that needs to go to a museum versus profit. It comes down to that. But this one is
a museum.
Shall be in a museum. Top men handle this, but instead it takes a more sweet gesture that, again, a little saccharine, but I think I was on board with that. I was like, yeah.
I thought that was nice. I thought that was a nice way to wrap it off, and I think Sandra Bullock really brings that off, right? I mean,
because of what she's going through,
yeah, she brings off that scene, and in the sort of pathos around her character. I mean, yeah, this movie just, it worked for me. I enjoyed it. I'm happy to see a movie like this. I think the world could stand to have more of this and less of a lot of other stuff.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. It's been there's
like
been
if the world could stand to have like 3 or 4 of these a year, right? Like star vehicle rom-coms that are fun and frothy.
Well, and
right,
and just as a last statement for myself, it's like a lot of people do like adventure movies, and yet we just do not know how to do them anymore. We do not know how to do the Mummy. We do not know how to do Indiana Jones. We have these kind of homages to them, and nobody really understands what makes them so fascinating. What adventure really drives us and fascinates us. And this movie, at least, is articulating something that, the lull of life gets kind of interrupted with something of an adventure. And there's something fascinating and relatable to that. And it's the antithesis of like something like Jungle Cruise, like last year, which is half a good movie and then half a terrible one. And its sense of adventure becomes inundated with terrible writing, terrible mythology, and a dependency on CGI laden effects and this idea that everything has to be kind of Pirates of the Caribbean, which is I think a big problem. And so this one, in its, I think you take it and then you give it some ground and you give it some character relatability, and it's not so exaggerated. It really is just about an adventure of being in a new place and an uninterrupted nature place, and there's something genuine about that, and that's what I think. I'll just say that, yeah, if you want like an actual genuine sense of adventure, that's how you have to orient it. It's not about something that's a curse or exaggerated. It has to be grounded. That's why we love Indiana Jones. It is very grounded. It's very real, felt, and genuine. His aims are genuine, and so you have to do that with characters.
But also, I do think, and this movie does it some, although less than most, which is part of why I like it. I just think we're having a very hard time getting away from anything. Like, people just love the, like, ironic meta moments, like the slow motion with the shaking out the hair when they're running away and stuff like that.
Yeah.
People love that because it's a cheap laugh and it tests well.
Sure.
If you show that to a test screening, then people will laugh. You'll hear them laugh.
Test screenings.
That's a good joke.
I think test screenings are the bane of cinematic
probably
existence.
Are too. Well, that's funny, right? Because I was having a conversation with a friend about, like, how the Eggers movie is apparently tested bad before some...
I would tell people to go fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what do you want here? I mean, yeah, it's like Edna from Des Moines doesn't like this fucking movie.
Of course she's not.
But,
who cares?
I mean, see, the thing about Indiana Jones, right? You never doubt. There's no, and this is what Spielberg can still do that I don't think nobody is making movies at that scale well. Or at all, maybe. No, I would say well, because I think what's-his-name, Zack Snyder, is also unironic, but he's not good.
No.
He's very
absolutely.
earnest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But he's not good.
No.
But, like, the people who are doing it well, like the people who make the better superhero, like, big, like, spectacle movies like Taika Waititi or James Gunn, and they're not all good, but sometimes they're good, they're all very ironic and very arch and very funny. And so we're just sort of living in the constant fallout of the 90s and Gen X. It's funny because people talk about millennials, people talk about Zoomers, but it's really the 90s and Gen X that we cannot shake, right? Which is this inability, probably because a lot of these things got made by Gen Xers, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because if it's not Boomers, it's Gen Xers, because that's the next generation, and those are the people who are old enough to have the careers where they make these kinds of movies, right? And so you don't have a lot of people outside of someone like Steven Spielberg who can do that kind of high romanticism, who can do that earnest kind of appeal of a movie, right?
Yeah.
And so this movie is more earnest than most of those movies. But
I would agree.
But the Indiana Jones movies, I mean, he's funny and salty, but they are earnest. There's no sort of meta winking at the camera ever.
No, never.
Right? You're never supposed to see it as a sort of movie making a comment on other movies or sort of making an in-joke. I mean, everyone is committed to showing you, like, this shit happened, right? And we just have lost that. We've lost that ability. Or like I said, we have movies like that.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite movies from last year, Come On, Come On, which is a very earnest movie.
Yeah, very earnest.
Being made by one of my favorite filmmakers, Mike Mills, but it's a small family drama.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what that guy would do with an adventure movie at $100 million. It'd be hilarious.
And free reign choice. Like, it's almost like what
it's not going to happen.
James Gray did with Lost City of Z, which is phenomenal.
But even
a phenomenal adventure movie.
That is That's like either a small big movie or a big small movie.
Big small movie.
You know what I mean? It's like the biggest of the small
Yeah,
movies.
yeah. Well, we have gone beyond. We live in the age of constant reference, constant homage, and some people do it well. And this movie does it, a little bit well. But you're right. We've lost kind of an age of earnestness, and I don't know whether we claim that back or how we do that.
Or just the ability to even not rely on like cheap, sort of meta-cinematic
Reference points and
referential
flagpole
jokes.
points. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the movie that's worth talking about.
Yes.
Because we're going to talk about the Daniels. I already mentioned Swiss Army Man, but it's Daniel Scheinert, known as in unison as the Daniels.
Yeah, because they're both named Daniel.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Everything, everywhere, all at once. And I have to say, I'm sure we'll have quite a positive conversation. This movie is breathtakingly refreshing.
Unbelievable.
It is a tour de force in, I think, performance, conceptual entertainment, technical achievement, whether it is through the lens of its cinematography to the immaculate editing to make something so what could appear disassociative or confusing and make it so crystal clear and entertaining, and have what a realm of balance between heart, humor, absurdity, and statement, and commentary on the state of our world, the division of our generations, the difficulty, and it almost gets into a realm that it's almost incapable of finding a really good answer for, but maybe that's because you almost can't. But getting into this idea of existence, of identity, and whether or not that is worth it all in the end, whether existence is something we strive for and what that means, and how that gets kind of humorously belittled by the minutia of life, such as taxes, which is, I think, a wonderful juxtaposition to the circumstance, the wild, absurd circumstances that happen around it, because we all can relate to that
well, and
awfulness.
to what is at the core of this movie, which is this feeling of meaninglessness.
Yeah.
That we all have to wrestle with, presumably every thinking person, every conscious person, right, has at some point in their life said, what the fuck am I even doing this for? I go through all these motions, like, what do? I make money, like, we make money so we can fucking give it away the next day to pay our rent, to pay this, to pay that, and we work, and we just are on this fucking treadmill. Yeah, I mean, so here's what I would say. We talk about a lot of movies. We talk about bad movies, okay movies, good movies. Occasionally, luckily, we talk about great movies. But within the class of great movies, and this is a great movie.
Yes. Yeah.
There are movies, and this isn't even a qualitative assessment. Like, I'm not saying that I'm going to define a class of movies that I'm not saying is necessarily better than other great movies. But to me, this movie is of a kind that comes around every once in a while for me, as a personal feeling. It feels to me like a call to arms. It feels to me like look at what we can do.
Yeah.
Look at what we can do. Not just make something great, but make something that pushes the boundaries of what the medium can do.
Yeah, I am in total agreement, because when we talk about a subset of great movies, and some great movies this doesn't apply to, but it does apply to this one. This movie can only, and I mean only, be told through the realm and medium of cinema.
Absolutely.
This cannot be novelized. I mean, it could, but it wouldn't be as interesting.
No, it's a different thing.
This could be told as kind of maybe in a audio form, maybe not as interesting. It does not. The imagination.
Couldn't be. You wouldn't even want it to be a television show.
No,
because it's not like this. This is a perfect example of why cinema is so special. Because if you did an hour of this every week for 15 weeks, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
No, you're right. Because
I mean, I'm not saying that they couldn't take some of these ideas and make an interesting television show, right? But it's the concentrated experience.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is definitely a movie that if you have any way of seeing in a movie theater, you should.
Yes, absolutely. We saw it on a huge
we
IMAX
saw it in
screen.
IMAX, whatever. But like, go see it in a theater if you can, because I mean, I'll watch it at home at some point in my life, and it'll be great, and I'll love it then too. But the impact of seeing it in a theater is real and very significant.
Yeah, and it's because
the movie is trying to aesthetically overwhelm you.
Yes, and purposely so.
Yes, I mean, clearly, it's not. I don't think anyone would dispute that.
Well,
I mean, it's an aesthetically, it's an aesthetic assault.
Yeah.
Right, on your consciousness and on your senses.
Well,
and that's just more likely to work on you in a theater.
Absolutely. And the Daniels have been very vocal, which is actually rare for a lot of filmmakers, because they want you to maybe interpret or have an interpretation, but they've been very open about what was the point of making this movie, or what was the driving creative point. And it was about how there was such a divide between them and their older generation, and what it's like, and the difference what it's like to grow up in the age of the internet. This everything, everywhere, all at once. And I think it's so well articulated, if you think of it in that way, that it almost enhances the experience of knowing that. Because what she's going through, this idea of a multiverse of persons, skills, you are bombarded with a multitude of options of who you want to be and how you define yourself on every day in social media. Do you want to be a cook? Do you want to be an actor, a media influencer? Do you want to be just somebody who loves somebody with weird noodle hands? Like, it is
hot dog
hands. That's right.
I mean,
hot dog hands.
I will say that it is the hallmark of just pitch perfect filmmaking.
Yes.
To make a movie that manages to be so profound and beautiful, and also be at times really hilarious.
Funny.
Like the homage to 2001 scene where they kill the last ape with a normal hand, and 5 billion years ago,
and they have hot
dog hand apes kill the regular hand apes. Well, and that breaks us off into a plot line where Michelle Yeoh's character and Jamie Lee Curtis's character are lovers with hot dog hands.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, but the scene where the apes with the hot dog hands are just like hooting and hollering, and the other ape is dead. I was laughing hysterically.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Also, just in subtle ways, the use of how the worlds, the multitude of universes, is done in such a finesse with their humor, where she at one point is trying to articulate a movie Ratatouille, and they think, they're like, no, it's Ratatouille, and you think it's kind of a cheap Asian joke, but really it's she's connected to the multiverse, she's connected to this other world, she's recollecting this universe called Ratatouille, and it is a raccoon in this kind of thing.
And she's in it, working at a Benihana.
She's working at the Benihana.
Who has a raccoon on his
head. It's so ridiculous, so silly, and yet so well defined in this world that it's just so naturally a part of it. This is a mastery of tone. When you set up something that is so brilliantly absurd that you're able to kind of maneuver a lot of these jokes that would not land in a movie that doesn't understand itself, but it knows exactly when to introduce concepts, when to introduce and push forward the more ridiculous notions. I mean, I knew I was in for a ride even when it has a initial change, when you're watching the security cams and her husband gets taken over, played wonderfully by Ke Huy Quan, who most people know as Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, or in the Goonies. He's in the Goonies as well. He's wonderful. And then when he starts flipping around things in the security cameras and then comes back to act normally.
But that's really the only fantastical thing that happens, I'd say, for like about the first 20 to 30 minutes
of
the movie. which is also brilliant, right? Because they know that the people seeing this movie are going to probably have seen a trailer or a poster, and they're going to know that there's something weird and fantastical, crazy multiverse thing going on. And they hold that back for a while, which is also smart, right? Because you expect to descend into... I mean, insofar as I had an expectation, I expected to more quickly descend into whatever that kind of madness was. And instead they unfold it in this very sort of... It's a very smart way that they unfold it, where it kind of slowly dawns on you what exactly is going on. But I mean, they're getting at something. I mean, I understand the point about the internet age, but to me, it's about the modern age more broadly, in the mass media age. I mean, for most of human history, even most of civilizational history, right? Humans have been around for a couple million years, depending on what you count as a human. And when you think exactly the transition from one state to another state happened, right? When Homo sapiens emerged. Human civilization has existed for about 10,000 years, right? With people living in groups in cities or anything larger than the sort of hunter-gatherer tribe. Up until, gosh, I mean, very recently in human existence, your life prospects were pretty clear and pretty well defined. Almost everyone would not travel more than 20, 30 miles from the place they were born. They would have a fixed number of people that they were ever going to interact with, a fixed number of people that they could be friends with, they could mate with, whatever. That's not ancient history. That is, that is basically within living memory of the last people who, soon people who could remember a time before, say, radio and television was ubiquitous. Those people will soon be gone. But so we're not talking about ancient history. And this is something I talk about with some of my friends all the time. We are not well suited to the world that we find ourselves in. And how could we be? The pace of technological evolution is so much faster than the pace of biological evolution. And basically we've gone in 10,000 years from like stone tools to the internet. And the dinosaurs were around for hundreds of millions of years, right? Just being fucking dinosaurs. Right? So this movie, and this is, I think it's so profound, and I think it gets at it in just a very perfect and understandable and beautiful and funny and touching and interesting way. Which is this feeling of all the lives that you think you could have had. All the lives. And in a way, this is a movie that I sometimes think is a little overrated, but it gets at it in the same way that the sort of the final sequence of La La Land, which to me is easily the best part of that movie. And the one that the rest of the movie I could take. The rest of the movie is good but not great, but the end is really masterpiece filmmaking. That idea of like a different life, but that focuses on one different path, and illustrates it in a very poignant way.
Because it's like a road division. Road less traveled, but you went this way.
But this is very much this idea that I could have been anything. I mean, that's the sort of great. And we live in Hollywood, right? So we're in the hot white center of you could be anything territory. Right? You could be anything. Maybe you should have tried to be a celebrity chef. Maybe you should have tried to be a rock guitarist. Maybe you should have tried to be, a princess like Grace Kelly, right? Maybe you should have done this. Maybe you should have done that. I do agree that the internet is a real accelerant for that. But it's this process that's been going on through mass media where so many of our ideas about what's out there in the world, what we should do, how we should act, how we should dress, who's attractive, et cetera, are formed by images that we see on screens. First the TV, now the computer or the phone. And now we carry this shit around our pocket. Right? We carry this portal to every image that's not every, but infinite more images than you could look at if you looked at one every second for your whole life. More words than you could ever read if you read them for the rest of your life. More video footage than you could ever watch. In 100 lives. Probably. I don't fucking know. It's wild. And there's no way that our bodies and our brains are equipped for that.
No.
Because it wouldn't make sense. Because
Yeah.
we haven't had. I mean, think of how much it's changed. I mean, I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm very old. So I can remember a time. I'm of the last sort of cohort of people who will remember a time before the internet was a thing.
Yeah.
Where, personal computers when I was a kid were just starting to be a thing. People owning a computer in your house or using a computer in your school, right? That was just starting to be a thing. And widespread internet connectivity, especially high-speed internet connectivity, was, still to come, right? And just that change, I mean, we still have not grasped what that means for our consciousness.
Yeah. No, it's
we
true.
all know. It's funny because we all seem to know it's a problem. Not all of us, but people seem to generally acknowledge there's probably a problem here. There's probably something deleterious about this whole situation for our emotional, mental well-being. But we can't stop it, We can't put it back in Pandora's box or whatever. And this movie gets at it in such a great way, and gets at it in a way that is very resonant and not polemical. This isn't like Ingrid Goes West. Like, I don't know why I refer to that movie. Well, actually, I do know why I refer to that movie so much. We talked about this in a previous episode. There just aren't many movies that have dealt with this at all.
Yeah, yeah.
And the ones that do are like, I don't know. I didn't even see it, but that movie that there was always trailers for, where the woman gets recruited to fucking ISIS or Al Qaeda or something.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that? I did not.
I did not.
But I saw
that was one of
like
those computer movies.
Times.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so these movies are very on the nose and polemical and ripped from the headlines kind of shit. There are not many movies that have really seriously looked at the kind of fragmentary identity that the online world creates. And this movie does it in a way that's subtle. And also it never references like Facebook or anything.
No.
It's not like a commentary on the evils of Facebook.
What's genius about it is because it's not happening to somebody who is ingrained with this idea of social media or the fragmented idea of media. It is an older Asian woman who is sitting at a point of dissatisfaction. Yeah. And I think dissatisfaction, once it has entered your soul, it gets expounded. The existential crisis gets expounded upon with this thought process of what else could my life have been. And you get that with, I mean, Michelle Yeoh is so freaking good in it. She plays Evelyn Wang. And it's played for a little bit of humor, but also a bit of sad melancholy, especially when what she states is to her husband. She essentially says at one point, I imagined my life without you. It was beautiful. And it's a laugh moment, but at the core of it, watching his face because even though he's seeking a divorce, this is a man who loves his wife. And I think this is a man who always will love his wife across the multiverse. And I think that's what one of its more profound and beautiful moments is what comes at the end, is because it's trying to solve a multitude of relationships. Mother and father, wife and husband, and mother and daughter. And it's fragmented, and how it all kind of comes together is a better understanding. I mean, the whole movie is about understanding, which, could be, hallmarkish when it's taken to its most simplistic degree. But the fragmented nature of these problems are handled with such care. And what you have described is something profound, beautiful, sad, but also also entertaining and funny, because it's all of these layers are really showcasing what life is like in its experiential quality, and that it comes down to acceptance. It's like an acceptance of one's life, and through the sadness, through the humor, through the beauty, through the existential foreboding of it all, and come to accept it all as a package of this is what it is.
Yeah.
This is what life is. And it gets, again, how difficult is it that this is a martial arts drama comedy with existential philosophical flares, and it handles all of those facets with such elegance and grace and in a beautiful package that is seamless, because at one point you're laughing and then at one point you're kind of sad. One of the most beautiful segments is where they are just rocks. Evelyn and her daughter are just rocks in the existence.
Incredibly moving. Incredible. Yeah, I mean, I think I said this to you after we saw it. That, as a parent, where the mother rock sort of throws itself off the edge after her child but once again, talk about the power of art. This abstraction ends up illustrating something very profound and deep about the relationship between a parent and child.
Well, and it's a scene
that could be like one of the truest, most getting to the essence of parent-child that I've ever seen. Yeah. That feeling like I would throw myself off a cliff for you.
Yeah.
But as the rocks, it gives you the opportunity to have this aesthetic and emotional experience of it that you couldn't have if it was one human committing suicide after another human committing suicide. Well, that scene doesn't. That's a very different scene.
Yes, absolutely.
Although the movie is wrapped up in the idea of
suicide,
but even more than suicide, like self-annihilation at some even beyond suicide level, right? Because it's like I want my existence just expunged,
to be expunged.
I mean,
obviously,
not be functionally there. Maybe that's the same, but what it's talking about is more profound.
So I was going to ask you. So I think the movie is wraps up in a way that is marvelous when it comes to these different dynamics. I think mother and father. The father comes to a better understanding of the situation that his granddaughter is gay. They were all worried that he'd be apprehensive, that he'd be an old school relic, and that he would respond with bigotry and nastiness and judgment. And it turns out that when it's presented to him in its honest form, that he accepts her and just the beauty of who she is. Which I think there's a little detail of this movie that's pretty remarkable, is that the daughter, Eleanor, is essentially gay in every timeline. That's just who she is. It cannot be altered. It's just who she is in every form of existence. She's into women, which is, I think, very interesting. I think that because even Evelyn,
she goes both ways.
She goes both ways. And so I think that's a very profound statement, that some people are just who they are throughout the multiverse of experiences, that they can never change. Like you can't change their kind of inner nature. And then when it comes to husband and wife, I think it's wrapped up quite immaculately. This is the difficult question, and I've been wrestling with the movie, and I wanted to ask you how you feel about it. This idea that the daughter, this self-annihilation that we're talking about, this is of someone who is, throughout the multiverse of her experience, does not want to exist in any form, in any life, in any facet. And the movie kind of wraps up in a thesis that it's not, and I'm going to cheapen it, so if you find a better way to explain it, it's almost like suck it up. It's the mother is like, I understand and I'm willing to let you go, but this is life. This is what it's like. This is what you need to come to. You need to understand me and I need to understand you. And sometimes that's maybe not possible, and I know this is a movie, and I know it's trying to wrap up in not necessarily a bow, because this is not as pretty as that. This is tapping into a lot of questions that are very profound, very difficult, but I feel they do a disservice to the acknowledgement of somebody who wants to not exist. And I was going to ask you if you felt that way, or if you are seeing what I mean when I see that.
I understand what you're saying. Well, let me answer this as I often do, in a sort of roundabout way.
Sure.
Right. This movie is kind of an East meets West movie on many levels.
Absolutely.
Including on a sort of high religious level, right?
Yes, definitely.
Because Jobu Tupaki is Jesus, right? She's Jesus. She's Jesus in Gethsemane, because Jesus goes to the Garden of Gethsemane before he's going to be crucified. And he feels the whole pain of the world. He feels every pain of the world. So she's experiencing a kind of variant on it. But it's a very Buddhist variant on it. Because what she feels is not the pain, but the desire, right? Which on a Buddhist view of the universe is the pain, right?
Yes.
The pain is not the physical hurt of like getting punched or even getting your heart broken. The real pain is desire, right?
Yeah.
The real pain. So she is experiencing a Christ-like level of desire, where she's experiencing the desire of every conceptually possible version of herself across every possible timeline. Essentially an infinite amount of desire, right? Stretched across every instantiation of herself, right? So she is, in the way that religious figures like Jesus or like the Buddha, she is she is like us but more so, right?
Yeah.
She is
I agree with that.
She's like us but more so.
Yeah.
She's an extreme version of something we can all relate to, right? Which is this feeling, and that's why I want to go back to the thing you said about what Evelyn says to her husband about, I saw my life without you is great. The imagination of one thing is always better than the reality of the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's always better. Like the if you're in a relationship, like the moment of falling in love is amazing and magical. But once you're 10, I'm in whatever, over a decade in my relationship, I could always imagine something better than the present. Like I could always pipe dream my way to something that is like, oh yes, that would be so much better, right? And you don't need to have like a super powerful imagination to even do that, right?
No.
So that's what that moment's getting at, right? And Jobu Tupaki is just that taken to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Right? So what I think the movie is giving you is at the end, like the end is not the end, right? Because because like Omar says in The Wire about surviving as a rip and run man, you just do it one day at a time, right? So the thing you have to come to terms, like you come to terms with this every moment of every day, right? Whether you think of it in a Christian sense like prayer and like communing with God, or you think about it in a more Buddhist sense of like meditating and being present in the moment, because that's what's being counseled is presence.
Yeah.
And I will say that, as someone who has dealt with depression and anxiety and things like that, there are no other answers but that, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process. So in a sense, the movie can never really end at the end because there is no end.
Yeah.
So it ends at the point where someone gets, where the person who is suffering most starts to catch that glimpse of the only option available, right, to not get pulled under, which is just to live one day at a time and presently, and to try to practice radical acceptance of what is real, right? Because you could certainly,
rather than what's imagined,
because, and I don't think it's particularly important, but you could certainly see the movie, like these things are just mental projections to these people.
Yes.
Because that still is the Evelyn of that timeline. And that is still the Joy is her
Joy.
Joy is her name. I like Jobu Tupaki, which is like her demon name or whatever.
Yeah.
They are still the Joy and the Evelyn of that timeline, and that is what's real for them. Whatever they jump to and see, that's who those two people are.
Yeah.
And to be able to pull yourself away from this insane mental collage that we all experience of all the lives that you could have had where you were cooler or sexier or richer or more interesting, to pull yourself back to this moment and try to be in that moment and accept it, I often make this distinction. There are a lot of things in life that are simple but not easy, and that's one of them. The answer to what you have to do in the face of this existential dread, the answer is simple. It's not easy to do. It's very, very hard to do, and you will at best succeed intermittently and incompletely.
Yeah.
But so I feel like I hear what you're saying.
Well, no,
but I think the movie takes. I think that's outside of just ending completely open ended. I mean, I guess you could end it with her at the donut, and we don't know whether she does it. She annihilates herself or not. You could end the movie that way, but the movie is more heartfelt and sentimental than that, and it wants to give
an answer.
Because I mean the movie at the end of the day. And this is why another big call to arms movie for me, especially because I was about to have a kid at the time, was Inside Out, and I feel like these movies have similar things to offer and similar ways of analyzing, which is that like you have to find a way to accept.
And
right?
I think
I don't think there's any other honest answer to the problem.
No, you're 100% correct, and I think as you were talking, I've come around to because. This movie in its tone has to have sort of an answer, and whether it is sentimental or whether it is
I mean, she could have killed herself. That's another way it could have ended.
Yeah, but
too.
You're right. Had that happened, it would kind of be a betrayal of what the tone and what the message of the movie is that it's about all of us. It's not just Joy. It's not just Evelyn. We all have to kind of take the present and enjoy and value the now, because essentially if we don't do that, we get fragmented, we start deviating into all these fantastical degrees into what is possible. And as you were putting it, there is a lot of religious symbolism into this movie, and that you have to kind of put it into that a context of understanding that through all of these variations of experience, that the now is the most important, whether it is the now of that experience in this fractured multiverse or this experience, because all those people, essentially they're saying, because they're all interconnected, are sad, are unfulfilled, are unsatisfied in some form or another. And it's because they're all venturing out of that experience rather than being here.
It's a tale as old as time, right? And we live in Hollywood, so we live in the epicenter of it, right? When I feel depressed or I lament my state and think, well, if I just had this or if I just accomplished this, I'd feel better. I always think of Philip Seymour Hoffman dying with a needle in his arm when you could have credibly argued that he was the best actor working.
Yeah.
Like if you'd have said that guy was the best actor, it wouldn't have been uncontroversial, but you could have made a very credible case.
Very, very credible.
Like you could have, if you were going to create a list of nominees of the best living screen actor, he'd have made the list, and I don't think anyone would have said he didn't belong on the list.
Yeah.
And that guy died. Died, like I said, with a needle in his arm, right? I mean, it's all bullshit. Like if you think having stuff or accomplishing things are going to make you happy, you're wrong, but everybody thinks it.
Yeah.
We are programmed evolutionarily to want to succeed and want to be admired and want to have our place in the tribe, secure, right? And famous people, successful people, not famous people, poor people, rich people, there are some percentage of people that don't metabolize that.
Yeah.
They just can't.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to say can't, because I don't think any of this is destiny, but for whatever reason they reach a point where it's too much.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're even given the promise in the end of this movie that Joy is all better.
No, I agree with you.
She'll never, because not everyone makes it, right? I mean, that's the sad fucking fact, and we've all had to deal with that in one form or another in our lives. Not everyone makes it. Not everyone gets through. But I do think that there is I don't think this movie is diminishing her struggle, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's offering false hope.
No.
I think the hope that it is offering is the true hope,
Yeah.
which
I-
has to do with radical acceptance
Yeah.
and presence.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, when you are tackling such profound philosophical notions, you do have to land somewhere. And this movie, you're right, offers some sense of ambiguity of where things go from here. But the journey culminates and completes to what I think is a appropriate hope. And it is appropriate hope for the tone and ambition, guidance, and thematics that this movie has.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we talked about it because I've been wrestling with it, which is a sign of a really great movie, to be honest. Like, just because I'm wrestling with something that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, to stick with you. If it doesn't stick with you, you got to question how good it is.
Yeah. Because, it's all about, I'm trying to understand the motivation of a lot of these characters. What is the thesis? What is the guiding light and principle of this movie? And if it is saying it with essentially a hand that is just so assured, and I think it is assured, but it's leaving it a little bit open. And I think that's all that I need in order to like really wrap my head around what the different experiences of these characters are, because it wraps up sort of nicely, but it isn't necessarily the answer that everything is fixed. It is just about, this is how we can possibly move forward. Can we? And I think that takes it to a...
But it's also just in the great tradition of movies that use sort of fantastical science fictional devices to get at profound questions and issues of what is melancholic about life, which often those are the ones that do the best. I mean,
Yeah.
I brought up Inside Out, which has this weird sort of abstract notion of the consciousness that gets illustrated throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, something La Jetée comes to mind,
La
right?
Jetée is fantastic, yeah.
As a movie that's trying to get at something very profound about human life,
Yeah.
and uses, you even mentioned 12 Monkeys in that same context, obviously coming off of La Jetée. There are movies that have done it well with romantic love and romance, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
I really like Her. I think that maybe is a little more of a divisive movie, but I think that movie...
Yeah, it didn't used to be.
I think that movie does a good job of sort of getting at what is kind of profound and sad and about love, about everyone who's had a relationship go south knows that feeling of losing something, or Eternal Sunshine of just wanting to forget.
Yeah.
Wishing they could just never remember.
I'm glad you're bringing these movies up because I think this movie does fit nicely into that kind of category.
But I think this one goes the deepest.
Yeah.
Maybe La Jetée is the one that...
La Jetée in its 30 minutes is so profound
because the love thing, the romantic... And I love both those movies that I mentioned, but it still is a more discrete set of human experience. Like, this is trying to really get at like the whole bagel, right? The everything bagel.
the everything bagel, yeah.
Because it's about romantic love. Like you said, it's about the relationships between children and parents, how children feel about parents, like to adult, and that's even different, right? Like an adult child and their adult parent. I mean, that I'm experiencing that with my parents now, and also I have a child, not as old as Joy, but I have a child, so like that relationship, romantic relationships, it's really and your relationship with yourself and your consciousness.
Yeah,
it's really trying to get at the nexus of all these things, and I honestly, I don't want to say that no movie has ever succeeded at it, but it's in a rarefied class, and I'm gonna have to think more about movies that try this hard and do this well to get at something.
Yeah.
Like, because it's even a little bit different than La Jetée, because La Jetée is getting at kind of the nature of time and human experience, and
Well, and an interesting
and
notion
how to
about
understand.
well, it's also an interesting notion about human freedom, and that
Yeah.
even you make the choice whether or not you know it's decision or not, and whether that choice is important, and and it has reverberations, and even if you know the path, making the choice is the important
Yeah.
decision.
But I think that gets at another thing with this movie, in that our modern age really, because we live in such a weird time, right? Because we have all this input, but also with kind of globalization and like global super corporations, we also feel like more under the thumb of fate. So we feel
Sure.
both
Sure.
tremendous possibility in some conceptual sense, but where the rubber meets the road in our own lives, we feel at the mercy of forces that we don't even understand.
This movie taps into that
Which
very
is
well.
another big difference, right? Because, in most of human history, at least you knew who was fucking you and exactly by what means they were fucking you.
Yeah.
Right? You knew, if you were a serf or a sharecropper or a slave or whatever, you understood what your problem was and who was the source of that problem.
Yeah.
Whereas now, no, I mean, what, we have, why is it you have to keep working for a shitty wage so someone else can make a lot of money so you can keep living at whatever standard and not fall off that? I mean, nobody's responsible, right? Your immediate boss is, you might hate them or like them, but they're not the ones. What the owner of your company, okay, now maybe we're getting somewhat closer, but what is the relationship between the literal, like, almost like Elon Musk and I mean, they're like the Jobu Tupakis, right? And Jeff Bezos, like, they're like these almost demigods that kind of exist in our collective conscious, and we know somehow are running things, but how, like,
and where and to what means and to what degree, and
so it's all the more of a mind fuck, because at once you're said, well, you can be anything you want, you can do anything, you can move across the world, you can change this, change that, change your body, change your life, change everything, but also people feel tremendously constrained.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why COVID fucked people up so much, was because it was such an explicit manifestation and a more concrete manifestation of the way they already felt, which is that they couldn't do what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
That, it's like we're all who is the one? It's not Sisyphus. Who's the one who, like, can never drink, right? I forget which one. He has to stand in a pool of water, but when he bends down to get the water, it goes just out of his reach. Surrounded by the things you desire or need or feel as though you need, but never able to actually grasp them. I think that's a feeling that a lot of people have.
I think that's very accurate.
Then not only that, but they don't even know who they should be pissed off of.
Yeah,
like,
and
who's moving their cheeks,
and because of that, there's endless frustration, endless dissatisfaction, endless
but it's diffuse,
malaise,
right, which makes it worse.
Yeah.
I mean, if I knew that, whatever, Katie was the source of all my problems, well, I could be angry at Katie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could even find a way to do a revolution on Katie.
Maybe.
But if I'm just like, well, I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what would I do? Like,
Yeah.
even if I was willing to do anything, even if I was willing to do violence, I don't even know who would I do it against.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there is that profound helplessness that this movie surveys as well. I mean, just on an individual character level, just the bureaucracy and red tape of taxes, and how that is this easily symbolic gesture as to how the universe kind of enacts this sense of control and helplessness in the world. Like, it is layers upon layers of it.
And the Jamie Lee Curtis character, who, she's great in this too.
She's fantastic.
And she's called, like, this movie asks a lot of its actors, and
absolutely.
they all deliver.
They all deliver.
It asks a lot of them. I mean, they're asked to go.
Great James Hong.
Yeah.
My goodness, the man is 90 something years old.
Yeah.
Still fantastic.
Yeah. He gets to do, like, the whole. I always make reference to the Ronald Reagan sketch where he's a nice guy at one moment, like an evil genius the other. He gets to do that, which is always a fun.
Well, I like it when she goes, "When did he get so good at English?" It's just great.
But I I love this movie.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if there's one movie I like as much as this movie this year. I'll be happy. If there's two, I'll be shocked.
To be shocked. Wow. All right.
I mean, I could be wrong.
No,
but I really like this movie.
This is an exceptional. This is an exceptional film.
If the universe can give me two movies or three movies this year that I like as much as this movie, it would be a banner year for me.
It would be a banner year. This is an exceptional film.
I mean, it might bring other like I said, but this is I want to make this distinction clear. There's a lot of we'll see good movies. We'll see some great movies. I'm sure we'll see more great movies.
This is a very particular.
But will I see another movie that just speaks to me as like I said, it's a call to arms. Like, let's fucking go. Let's push it.
Yeah.
Right? And there's just not a lot of, like, I look at even the movies I liked from last year. I don't know that there's one that I would say was as much a call to arms as this one.
Like for life and for its fragmented.
I mean, I know I'm such a partisan for him, but to me, Red Rocket.
Yeah, I love that movie.
But I mean, it was just a movie that was going someplace new.
Yeah.
I felt this. I mean, honestly, one of my ultimate call to arms movies is Florida Project. To me, Baker is someone who goes somewhere new because he does this neo-realism, but does it in this very interesting way. And in Red Rocket, he's even like doing neo-realism with these little punches of fantasy shit.
Yeah.
And it's just like he gets at something very gritty, but he gets at it in a very funny and human way that feels like really fresh to me.
Yeah.
Whereas there's, Power of the Dog is very fresh too. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great movies. Like, I mean, I love West Side Story, but that's never going to be a call to arms movie.
You're right.
For me.
This is a spectacle achievement on the same level as West Side Story, but it is getting into things that are really at the nexus of our modern age that we've talked about. They are really at the kind of philosophical crossroads of how we handle the complexity of everyday life. And it really is, and it does so in such an emotional poignancy that it is it becomes profound.
Yeah,
and you're right.
Yeah.
So it stands above the rest.
Yeah,
in that way.
And it goes back to where I started, which is that we talk about bad movies. Morbius is a bad movie.
Yeah.
We talk about good movies. I think Lost City is a good movie, and there are gradations of these things. I'm not saying that all like good movies or bad movies or whatever created equal. And then we talk about great movies sometimes, like movies that are really great. And then this is just, to me, like I said, I'm not saying it's a different tier than great. It's just a subset of great. Which is movies that I think are path-breaking.
Yeah.
Or are really pushing the limits.
Yeah.
Right?
And they really are. They're pushing everything to the limit.
I mean, and for me, it takes me back to when I first fell in love with movies, which is when I saw Clerks. Because for me, at that moment in my life as a teenager, seeing that movie right after it came out, it blew up my idea of what movies could be. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it. It couldn't be a more different movie, right? Black and white, shot on 16 mil. The biggest special effects is title cards, graphic title cards. But to encounter that movie at that moment in my life just broke it all open for me.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think for those of us that love this shit, I think we're always looking for that. Is what's the thing that's going to break it open for me? Not just be great. We love, like, I love West Side Story, but it's just, this is something else.
Yeah.
This is something else. This is something that is suggesting new possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that's really exciting.
That is exciting. Yeah.
And it doesn't.
We need more of that.
It doesn't. It just. But I mean, the truth is, many are called and few are chosen,
That's
right?
true.
I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and you know what? Well, these guys, they'll make another movie. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be more uneven, like Swiss Army Man.
Yeah. It's an uneven movie.
You just don't know. Sometimes you just catch it. Sometimes you just catch some shit.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes you don't.
I mean, this is about everything coming together.
Yeah,
and it is kind of miraculous.
Yeah, but it's always going to be a miracle, right?
Yeah.
Because just in the way, you know, at a different moment, like with a different story. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of professional, well-intended people making a movie like Morbius. I mean, there are a lot of structural reasons why movies like that aren't always very good. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, always, right? But I'm just saying, like, some of it is just, you know, I mean, all of your favorite musicians have made better albums or worse albums.
Yeah.
All of your favorite filmmakers have made better movies or worse movies.
Yeah.
I mean, even, you know, like filmmakers that are consistently really good, like Hitchcock. I mean, there's still not all of them are Rear
Nope.
Window.
It's
Not
very
all
true.
of them are Vertigo, right?
Nope.
Even the very best people, they don't, even Spielberg, whoever you want to pick, whoever your heroes are, they don't bat 1,000.
No.
They don't bat 1,000.
But that's art. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the realm of art.
Yeah,
That's
but I'm
what's
saying,
going to
like,
happen.
It's just amazing that you can have the best people, the most brilliant people, you know. I mean, I think about, you know, when a good director makes a bad movie, and I think, like, this person, like, the difference between what they know about filmmaking and what I know filmmaking is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. I mean, it's just so much more, but they fucked it up.
Sure.
Like, with their genius and their knowledge and their resources and their clear gift for the medium, right? They fucked it up. Like, sometimes shit is just, I mean, they don't call it magic for nothing. I mean, sometimes magical shit just happens.
Yeah.
Like, the stars just align, right? And to me, this is a stars aligned movie. But I will say this. If there's one thing, you know, one of my favorite authors, Michael Chabon, said, what is it? You can the things that matter are talent, work, and luck. And of those, only one can you control, and that's work. And I would say that I would add to that as an addendum, work isn't just time and effort and energy. It's also about courage.
Sure.
You have to be courageous to make a movie like this.
Yeah.
This is a very
This is
a
true.
risky movie.
Yeah.
Right? This is a risky movie. And it takes a kind of aesthetic courage to really swing for the fences.
And they really
this
do.
movie swings for the fences, and it could have gone wrong.
It could have gone very
Could have gone wrong. Could have sucked, right? So
could have been messy, could have been uneven,
so what?
All of those things.
So in terms of, once we get past luck and kismet and all that shit, the one thing that I have to give everyone credit for, everyone involved in a project like this, is they had courage.
Yeah.
They had artistic courage. And I know that's not the same as like running into burning buildings, but for those of us that love the form, that look to it for nourishment, for you know, to console us in this very challenging world, it's something we should celebrate. Is having artistic courage to really go for it.
Yeah.
Like this movie goes for blood. This movie goes for blood, and you know,
it gets loads in return. Like
but
it
you know what? If you
rewarding.
don't go for blood, you won't make a movie like this.
Yeah.
You might make a terrible movie. You might make a movie that totally doesn't work.
Yeah.
But this movie goes for it. It goes for the jugular. And it succeeds.
Yeah, it's absolutely brave and risky and very rewarding because of it. So yeah, I think everyone should be seeing this movie. You should see it on a big screen. You should see it in the theater. This is a profound, exciting, thrilling, entertaining, funny, emotional movie. And it's hard to get all of that in one sitting, and you feel it all the way through. It is a truly jaw-dropping experience, and so I highly recommend it. I think Ben Thelen highly recommends it. Well, all right, Ben Thelen, Dead Reckoner podcast.
Well, it's all actually, I'm putting everything on Substack now. So deadreckoner.substack.com.
Okay.
Go on to Substack and find me there. We're going to have some podcasts on there.
You're going to have the audio form of this on that.
There's a lot of stuff. I've put up some writing recently. I'm even going to start putting some stuff up behind a paywall, so you can get excited about that or not. As I try to make some money, because I need money. And yeah, go read it. I think I don't know. You might like it.
And
There's a lot of free content too, so
I
do a
know,
free
yeah.
subscription, and I'll paywall a few things. And if you want to see that shit, or if you just love me that much, then pay me some money.
Absolutely. And I know movies and you don't. Kyle Bruehl. I also have a Patreon you can support the show in general. The content for the Patreon is kind of on hold, but we still make 150 episodes a year, so which is more than you get from most podcasts and shows. I would say.
You're definitely like short of like The Daily or something. you're definitely making a lot of content. He's a content king.
Yeah, what is this? It's April 3rd, a week from tomorrow, because we're recording on a Sunday. A week from Monday, new season. I Know Movies and You Don't comes out. Heist Cons Grifters. We're almost halfway done.
Got some of those in the can.
Almost halfway done. Yeah, it's been a frustrating process. That's part of the reason why the Patreon content is on hold. But we're trying.
Maybe we should put maybe we should do like a sexy photo shoot for the Patreon.
I would do a sexy photo shoot with you. Absolutely.
That's right.
We could do that.
That's right. We'll use tastefully placed like cinema reels or like boxes of the old film canisters to obscure our naughty bits.
Well, I'll get a photographer willing to do that. I think I could.
That's true. We got to know someone who could shoot this.
But we'll be back next week. We got Ambulance, Michael Bay's new
Bayhem.
Bayhem. We got Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I imagine we'll do that one as well.
I know a lot of people are surprisingly high on the first one. I need to watch the first one.
No, I'm a big no.
You're a no on that? I like it when we disagree. We were a little disagreeing today. I like it when we disagree. We gotta have a little bit of.
It's very.
We can't be like the Morbius detectives.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a movie. There was actors in it. Yeah, it's true.
That was their observation.
It was pictures on a screen.
Yeah, that's
they run them at actually 24 pictures per second, but it looks like a moving thing.
Weird.
Is
that how it is? The illusion. The illusion.
What kind of fucked up world do we live in?
I know, it's fantastic, but
that you can see a bunch of pictures, but it looks like reality.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I engage in it regularly. So, but we'll be back next week. Look for any of our stuff. But if you listen to this, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Like, comment, subscribe.